A woman writes to me and says, a wise person gave me an assignment. A wise person meaning somebody that she can write to, talk to, who is capable of seeing her, accepting her, and loving her. That's all a wise person is. A wise person gave me an assignment, and as I did it, it became very clear that I have been making my children responsible for my happiness, which is why we talk to wise people, because we do things in our lives like, I don't know, every day, in fact, most of us all day, that we wouldn't see because we've been in it for our whole lives. That's why we need somebody on the outside who can see us and love us. With the tools we have, we just tend to create and perpetuate the same problems. So, back to her. She said, so I got an assignment, and as I did it, it became clear that I've been making my children responsible for my happiness. It completely boxes me in and places an incredible burden on them. Well, good for you. How lovely to see it that you're doing this, and then possibly free yourself from it. Yeah? Delightful. That's the beginning of any meaningful change, is seeing it, then admitting it. What's the difference? Well, I can see that I'm a selfish person and then just kind of blow it off. But if I see it and admit it to people, oh, that's a different thing now. Now I have an opportunity to be held accountable by other people, and I have an opportunity to get a greater sense of commitment to doing something about it. People don't just say, yeah, I'm a really selfish person, and how about those Mets? No, I'm a really selfish person, which is followed by, what can I do about it? So it really matters to see what we do and talk about it, which is what you're doing. How beautiful that someone would care enough about you to help you with this, the very function of a wise person. You continue. I was assigned to look at my past expectations, look at judgments and feelings, and change my expectations to a request instead of an expectation. Well, pretty smart assignment, because most of us don't make requests. We ask for something, and we are absolutely certain that we're making a request. And at the moment, often we can't tell the difference. The most incontrovertible evidence that you're not making a request is when you don't get what you asked for. And then you feel disappointed or annoyed or frustrated or whatever, proving it wasn't a request. You were making a demand. You clearly had an expectation, or you couldn't be frustrated. Like when I say to Donna, do we have apples? And she says, nope, no apples. And I go, okay. Pears? No. Kumquats? What? Eventually we're going to have something. And I just don't really care. That's a request. Now, if I say, do we have apples? And she says no, and I go, oh, so we don't have stores in town? So you haven't been at a store in the last year that had apples? Yeah, well, then I just proved I wasn't making a request, didn't I? I don't do that because then I'd be dead. I'm joking. So you are assigned to look at past expectations and how to change them to requests. So here's some examples. 1, this is still you writing. I want them to invite me to come with them, my children, when they do, quote, fun stuff. And you have expectations around this. So how could I turn this into a request? Here's what you say. I would like to go hiking with you in the next month. I'm available the next 2 Saturdays. Would you like to do that? Well, that's much less demanding. It is. I would like to go hiking. Would you be available the next 2 Saturdays? I do have a suggestion. Requests that have the slightest hint of vagueness in them usually turn into nothing, and then you discover you're disappointed. Yours is a little vague. The next 2 Saturdays. Well, see, that's a lot of wiggle room. It's better than just go hiking sometime, as most people would say, or one of my favorite phrases is when somebody says to me, we need to get together sometime. And I'm thinking, that's going to be an easy one. Because what if they don't pinpoint a time, make a request, we're never going to get together. So listen to this as an example of a specific request. And the tone matters. You can get the words right, and if you have the tone wrong, it becomes a demand. So you could say, quote, and just a suggestion, it's an option. I don't care how you say it. I'm going hiking at Tallulah Falls. See, now you're really giving them a choice. They may be interested in hiking at place A, but not place B, and then they show up at your house and you say place B, and they're going, oh, no, I don't want to go. So now you're telling them ahead of time. I'm going hiking at Tallulah Falls, which is a real place, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Now there's no vagueness. Now they know. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. this Saturday, as opposed to we're going to go hiking and then you take them to a place that's all day long and then they go, well, I'm never going to accept a request from mom again. Would you like to go this Saturday from 10 to 1? You're specific. They know exactly what you're asking. Your first request didn't do that. In the first 2 Saturdays, let's go hiking. Oh, that could be an all-day thing. It could, who knows what you mean by that. If the time, if you say 10 to 1 and they say, I don't want to get up that early because they've been playing video games all night or whatever, can we go from 11 to 1? Well, see, now we can modify. It's much easier to modify than to make them come up with a time. No, you're going to do the work. Then you both get to decide what works for you. If what works for you doesn't work for them, well, then clearly we ain't hiking this Saturday, are we? That's it. You both have to be happy with it. You continue because we're talking about judgments, requests, and how to modify these things. Old judgment, you say, from being left out of the fun stuff. They don't love me, and they don't want to include me. Feeling, because event, judgment, feeling. The feeling, left out, not important, alone, defective, and that's why they don't want to do stuff with me. Okay, so I'm going to suggest a new judgment that you consider, or not. New judgment. They have their own adult lives to live. They don't live with you. They're not little kids anymore. And I'm speaking as though I were you, I'm simply less a part of their adult lives than I was when they were here at home. I'm happy for every moment I do have with them, rather than fussing about what I don't get. I choose to be grateful, which will make me happier, and secondarily, they will want to be around me more when I'm grateful than be around me when I'm being demanding. Everybody wins when you do this. When you change your judgment, you win, they win, the universe is a happier place. New situation. You speaking again. I have expected them to show me pictures of their travels and, we're back to that phrase, fun stuff. A potential request might look like this. And this is you suggesting it. Would you be willing to show me a picture from your trip? Tempting. Really tempting. Even sounds like a request. It, after all, does end with a question mark, but so do many demands. No, don't do it. Because you have a long history of being demanding with them. Long history. When you say a sentence that ends in a question mark and you're certain it's a request, that has turned into a demand so many times that there are some things you just leave alone. You want to go on a hike? Ask. You want the pictures? How about instead you just be grateful for anything they share with you? So you might adopt this. Quote, I will no longer have expectations about what my children do or do not share with me. No more. It's selfish to have these expectations. It makes them feel obligated whether I express my desires or not. End quote. In other words, gratitude instead of greed. Gratitude instead of wanting. Old judgment. This is your statement. They don't want to share their lives with me. And this is painful. Just like I don't want to share my life with my mother. And so the pattern continues from generation to generation. Yeah, the pattern continues until you stop it. Can't expect your children to stop it. It's you. You're the one that's writing here and talking to me. You're the one who's expressed an interest in changing your life. They haven't. So the pattern will continue until you drop the expectations and choose to be grateful. Notice, I'm not telling you to. I'm not saying you stop doing that. That would be an expectation. I'm saying gratitude works better. And it's very cool that the more grateful you are, now this is a secondary benefit. You don't feel grateful and you don't refrain from asking for pictures to manipulate them to get the pictures. That's not going to work. But the less you demand, the more you'll get. Because they'll start to trust you, that you don't have an angle. You're not squeezing them for something. New situation. I have demanded, or I have wanted them, my children, to not expect me to raise their children. In other words, there have been many situations where they just take off for days or a week at a time and they just dump their kids with me. So you say an example of a request would be, it doesn't feel necessary at this point to say that to them, and would just be an attack on them to say, don't expect me to raise your children. Well, that's pretty smart. Judgment from you. So many people these days are raising their grandchildren, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to feel beholden. I don't want to feel used. The feeling I get from that is fear. So on each occasion, instead of going through all of this mental torture, I don't want to be used, there are people who get manipulated, my children take me for granted. What a nightmare you've got going here. Instead of that, on each occasion that they ask for help with babysitting or whatever, you will either be available or you will not. There, that's it. Deal with each occasion instead of giving them blanket statements. I will not be. Once you state a blanket thing, like spouses who one spouse will say to the other, I wish you were more considerate. That's the kiss of death. Because now this hangs over the spouse forever. What's more considerate? Am I being more considerate now? How about now? How about now? Is now more considerate? How about if we deal with each day? So on each occasion they ask for help, you'll be available or you won't. And you will not feel obligated or guilty. Notice, all these instructions are to you, not them. So you don't have any need to deliver this blanket statement, I will not raise your children. See? Next expectation that you've had with your kids. Remember my birthday. This one is like a death knell in most families. You better remember my birthday. You better remember my anniversary. You better give me a gift worth at least blank dollars and show some consideration on Christmas, Valentine's Day, New Year's Day, Columbus Day. It just becomes exhausting. So your suggestion is you could turn it into a request. Hey, I'm having a small party for my birthday, Friday night, 7 p.m., dinner at our house. You and your friends are welcome. Please let me know by Thursday night if you will be coming. End quote. Judgment. You say they should be grateful to me, grateful for me raising them, and so they should want to come to the birthday party. Feeling fear. Even though I try to act like I don't care if anyone remembers my birthday, I do care, which proves what? If you're afraid, you have an expectation. So you could make the request. And I understand your reason to say, if you're going to come on Friday, please reply by Thursday. I get it. Otherwise, you what? You would make food that wouldn't be used, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? You have such a long history of making demands and having expectations of them that when you say reply by, that's an expectation. It is. Is it a reasonable expectation? Yeah, it kind of is. You know, if you're having an event, you'd kind of like to know who's going to come so you don't prepare for 100 and you have 2. But the downside's only that you have too much food. The upside is they don't feel your expectations, and that's kind of the most important thing, right? Rather than too much onion dip. Then you would feel grateful if they remember. And if they don't, and if they don't notify you, well, then they chose to be somewhere else for whatever reason. But you're going to choose what again? You're going to choose gratitude. Don't push the reply by. Don't do it. So the same pattern applies to, same pattern of gratitude, not expectation, to the following, because you wrote about all of these. And instead of going through each one of them, I just gave you a couple of examples of what your expectations are, what you voiced as a request, showed you that the request wasn't quite a request because you were having expectations and feelings of possible disappointment and obligation and blah, blah, blah. So now let's see how this pattern applies to just a bunch of expectations you've had in the past. Wanting your children, by your account, to introduce their boyfriends or girlfriends to you. Expectation. They're going to feel it. They're going to feel this expectation. Oh, well, you've been dating for 3 weeks. Now, listen to how clever, because I've heard you do this. Well, I haven't met them yet. Hear that? It sounds so sweet. Oh, I haven't met them yet. What does that really mean? Because I know you, and your children know you. How come you haven't brought your girlfriend or boyfriend over here and had the consideration to introduce them to me? That's what they hear. It's also, by the way, what you mean. Another one. Wanting children to volunteer to watch our dog, my husband and I, when we go on a trip. Expectation, because you're disappointed when they don't. Be complimentary when I have success in my home business. Make comments about what I'm wearing. Clear expectation. You walk into a room and nobody says anything about what you're wearing and you're disappointed. Obviously an expectation. Call me rather than text me. Why? Because you don't like texting and you think it's less personal. And so it doesn't count in your expectation-filled minefield when they just text. No, you want them to do it whose way? Right, your way. Expectations. They feel it. They hate it. So you know what they do instead of calling or texting? Nothing. And then you get excluded on doing the fun stuff. And then you don't get the photos. And then you don't get introduced to the girlfriend or boyfriend. See the pattern? So there's no blaming here. I'm just saying you raised them to be afraid of your expectations. So they just back off, which was exactly what you didn't want to happen. Another one. Tell me when they're going to the doctor and what they're going to the doctor for. You're kidding, kid. I mean, in a minute, you're going to say, I'm disappointed that they don't call me and tell me what they had for breakfast. It's quite a list of demands. Am I mocking you? Yeah, a little bit. So that you can see that it gets kind of silly after a while to have this number of expectations of your kids and then expect them to feel welcome and want to be around you. Not going to happen. And sometimes when we're mocked and teased a little bit, we can actually hear it better than if somebody's screaming at us and taking it too seriously. So there's an overall pattern here that might help you. We never have a right, memorize this line, pretty much everybody who's listening. We never have a right to expect that someone will do something for us. Remember that phrase. Never. I don't ever have a right to expect somebody to do something for me. But you listed some other expectations, so this statement might help you with those. A new statement. We do have a right to expect that somebody not do something to us or take from us. So, no expectations for us, but it is okay to have an expectation that somebody not, say, smack us in the head with a shovel or take from us, come into our house at unannounced hours and take things to their house. But here are some examples from your life. Like, your children have had a habit over the years of making messes at your house, and you've expressed dismay at that. Oh, you actually get to have an expectation about that. You do. And you get to tell them, here's the deal. I love you unconditionally. No kidding. I'm learning how. I'm not real good at it, but I'm learning how to love you unconditionally. That's for free. Being in my house is not unconditional. And you get to say it just like that. I know people, for example, I just talked to a woman who's going to be coming here in a couple of weeks and already love her without conditions. And I said, there is a condition for being in my house. I don't know where this came from. Out of the blue, I said, do you have a cat? I never ask people that. Donna does, but I don't. Do you have a cat? She said, yeah. How'd you know? I said, I don't know. But I said, so when you come, is it possible for you to launder a set of clothes and pack them in your suitcase before your clothes have been either touched your furniture or gone back in your closet? They just go straight from the laundry, poof, into your suitcase before you come. Because I'm pretty allergic to cats. And it doesn't matter whether the cat walked on your clothes, the cat danders all over the place. So I love you unconditionally, but you don't get to be in my house unconditionally. You have to be clean of cat dander. Your children, back to you, don't get to make messes in your house. So they won't be surprised then when they come over and you say, so you need to clean up the dishes, I'll wipe off the counter, whatever. Or you decide which task they're going to do. But you ain't their servant and they ain't coming to a hotel or a restaurant. An example you brought up, parking cars at your house. Like, for example, they're going to the airport or whatever. I don't remember the reasons. And they'll park a car at your house and then just leave it there for weeks. No, you don't really have to work your way around somebody else's car, especially when they just park it there and don't ask you. They don't get to touch or move your stuff without asking. One Christmas, my children gave me a plaque that says, Dad's 3 rules. Goes in the workshop. Don't touch my stuff. Number 2, don't touch my stuff. And number 3, don't touch my stuff. It's pretty clear. Why? Because I have an attachment to my stuff. You can have my stuff. I can go get another one. Because when I go to do a task, I don't want to spend half the time of doing my task looking for the shovel that you put away or took away, whatever. Well, that would be unlikely with my children flying here. They don't usually carry shovels as carry-on items. You get to have those reasonable expectations and you get to state them to them. This is an expectation that I have. It's a standard for being at my house. Now, you stated some others. One of them was, could look like gray areas. You said you have an expectation that they not wear inappropriate clothing. So we're starting over. We're going to see, where does this go? We talked about people don't have a right to do something to you. So let's see how this qualifies. If they wear inappropriate clothing, what does that do to you? You just become afraid that somehow you didn't teach them appropriate dress standards when they were children. Well, get over it. They're adults. They get to choose what they wear. Now, if they're walking naked in the front yard and you could get arrested, okay, then you get to make that a standard for them coming to your house. You have to be dressed. But inappropriate, yeah, they're too old for you to make that determination. You get to make that determination when they're 12 and dressing like, well, streetwalkers and going to school. Yeah, you get to say something. Here's another one. Don't complain about other people. You have that expectation that they not complain to you about others. Well, but see, what if they're victims? What if they're whiners? Then you're asking them to modify who they are and how they express their pain. So if they're complaining about somebody, then the choices are really yours. You don't get to impose on who they are. You get to, for example, leave the room. You get to change the subject. You get to ask questions that will lead the conversation in directions that are not about complaining. So you get in the overall pattern here. You have a lot of expectations. You don't have a right to expect that they do something for you, like tell you why they're going to the doctor. You do have a right to expect them not to do something to you, like leave a car or make a mess, because that's inconveniencing you. Follow those general guidelines and you will find yourself fussing over little things about your kids a whole lot less. And, you know, they might like being over at your house more. New subject. I hear people complain quite a bit. Well, about lots of things. But one of the things is about how hard they are worked by their bosses. Oh, my boss expects this, and my boss expects that, and blah, 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 blah. They can go on all day. Too many hours, the workload is too much, complain. I get it. My boss is Donna, and she works me pretty hard too. But before you complain, start with the right questions. Now, I've used this kind of questions in the past, but probably not applied it, I don't think, directly to the workplace. First question, you got to ask them in the right order. How hard am I willing to work for what I'm paid? You have to decide that. Am I willing to work this hard for what I'm paid? Yes or no? If it's yes, then shut up. If it's no, then you get to go and ask the second question. Do I want to work less hard than this? If the answer is yes, now you got 3 ways to go. Got to ask these in the right order, and you've got to see the consequences of them instead of just complaining. Because if you're complaining to other people, you're complaining in your head, and it comes across your face when the boss asks you to do something. And if you keep it up, you won't have much to complain about before long, because you'll be fired, really. So if you decide you want to work less hard than this, you got 3 ways to go. You can just decide to work less. I have recommended that to people before. Somebody said, I'm not willing to work this hard. And I say, then work less. But keep in mind that if you work less, you might get fired. Now, I've actually suggested to people that they say to the boss, in the 8 hours that I'm paid to work, I can't get these 17 items done. So out of the 17 items, I think I can do 13. So you tell me which 4 you don't really care get done this week. You get to pick them. So now I can't inconvenience you because you're choosing what is less important. Let the boss prioritize. I have seen that work on many occasions because many bosses just, if you're doing your job and you're doing it adequately, especially if you're doing it well, the boss assumes you can do more. And what boss wouldn't continue to give you more and more work, paying you the same amount? That's just kind of human nature. It's the business model would appear to be profitable until they overload people and they break down and they lose them and they have to retrain somebody. So you can work less. That's number 1. Possibly get fired. 2, you can get another job where you get paid the same, but work less. But you better be pretty sure about that before you quit and go to that second job, because you know what's going to happen at the second job, right? You're going to get to the second job. They're going to assure you that this is what the workload is. You're going to do the workload. They're going to see that you do the workload relatively gracefully, easily. And so what are they going to do? they're going to pile on more work and you're going to be right back where you were in the first job. So just be aware of the choice and the likely consequences. I'm not telling you what to do about your job. Or number 3, you learn to like the job you have, which is usually the one to take in the short term. But complaining isn't an answer. Whining is not a step. So ask the questions, live with the answers. My son is a business professor, and sometimes he does lectures outside the university. He teaches MBA students, and sometimes he does lectures for corporations where he'll teach a couple hundred executives at a time. And one of the subjects that he talks about is how to make yourself happy and successful at work. And one of the subtopics is, how do you handle a difficult boss? Now, when he says that, because the room is filled with 200 mid-level executives, there's always, 2 or 3 higher level executives there, and he can see them wince when he asks that. How do you handle a difficult boss? And he tells him a story. He says when he got his first job, his boss was really difficult, demanding, long hours, lack of compassion, no appreciation. One day with a nail gun, he drove a nail right through his thumb, which, if you've never done that, hurts a lot. And the boss came up and saw him bleeding all over the place, and he said, wrap some duct tape around that. Keep going. So my son called me, and he complained. My boss doesn't this and he that, and he's demanding and blah, blah, blah. And I just listened on the phone. And apparently I said, at least this is what he tells the audiences, because I don't remember the particular incident. Apparently I said to him, so do you want to quit? One of the questions that I brought up earlier. He said, well, no, it's my first job. I'm doing fairly well at it. I'm making decent money, and the boss is a bit of a jerk, but no, I don't want to quit. And then I said, well, then quit whining and figure it out. So that's what's on his first slide of the lecture to the corporate executives. It says, quit whining and figure it out, Dad. It gets a big laugh. In fact, he says, I learned 2 things that day. Never go to Dad for compassion when you're whining. And 2, quit whining. But he explains how complaining never helps. Figure out what you want. If you don't want to work that hard, no problem. But then you have to find a job where you don't have to work that hard and you still get paid what you want. That's not as easy as it sounds. Remember, number 3 was learn to like the job you have. I have learned, as a result of counseling a great number of people in business, that as they like the job they have, as they're more cooperative, as they're cheerful, as they're less afraid, as they whine less, their work is valued more, and very often the boss is more compassionate and understanding and comes along and says, how are you doing? If you're overloaded, then we need to back off you. The boss does not say that to a whiner. Bosses don't like to talk to whiners. And as my son says this to a room full of executives, the higher level executives are in the back going, no, we really don't. Which confirms what he was saying. So figure out what you want, and then figure out if you can get what you want at a price you're willing to pay in time, labor, whatever. But figure it out. Welcome to earning a living. Welcome to life. Whining isn't a step. New subject. A woman from a couple doing real love together wrote to me and said, a week ago, we were with 3 guys that we're doing business with. We asked them if they were happy. So this is just a couple. They're sitting at dinner. They have 3 business mentors, and just out of the blue, this couple said, "Are you guys happy?" Just for kicks. It's as good as any other small talk people make. And this woman said, "I was surprised. These 3 experienced business mentors, these are the people who are teaching them, couldn't answer the question. They didn't understand. Happy? We're making money. We have cars, we have a house, but they couldn't answer the happiness question." So this woman continued. "We asked if their wives were happy, and every one of them said, 'I don't know.'" The woman continues, "My partner and I actually anticipated this response, that they wouldn't know if their wives were happy. But it still kind of blew us away. We were reminded that just because you're good at what you do, like these businessmen who are really very good at what they do, and even wealthy, does not mean that you're good at life, that you're happy. That's what happy is, being good at living. We're having a lot of fun together," this woman writes about she and her partner, "and we're really grateful for that." It's kind of amazing, isn't it? People really don't know. We're busy doing things to prove that we matter, that we're worthwhile, like making money, achieving status, and so that we don't get criticized. What if we just recognized that we already are important, that we already are lovable, that we already matter? Then we don't need to prove that anymore. Talk about a relief, huh? Then we're just free to express who we are. Oh, I hope you hear this because it applies to all of us. We're busy proving we're worthwhile. I'm here to tell you, not asking, I'm telling you, you already are. Not because of something you've done. You are innately worthwhile. If you get that, you don't have to work to earn that. You just are. Then now you get to express who you are. You get to express your gifts at home, at work, everywhere, and the entire experience is just fulfilling. It's fun. It's happy. You can be happy in any environment because you don't ever have to prove your worth. Oh, that's a big one, and it's a really tough one for most people. New subject. Here's somebody, a woman who writes me and says, "My grandson is having a birthday this week. The expectation from my daughter," and I know the daughter, she can be pretty demanding, hence the word expectation. My daughter's always expected that I must call the children on the day of their birthday, or it doesn't count. Well, I know the daughter, so she's not making this up. Your daughter is very controlling. Wow. I mean, she controls everything everywhere she goes. She's just a overwound watch. That's an old expression, isn't it? Nobody winds watches anymore. In the old days, you would wind a watch on the side. You would wind up the spring. And if you overwound it one click too far, the watch ceased functioning. It was too tightly wound, and then you had to go in and have it released and blah, blah, blah. She's got things so controlled that she's just frozen. She's frozen everybody around her. She can't be happy. You have to be yourself. She's controlling, but you have to be yourself. She's controlling, but you don't have to feel controlled. Big difference. People say this to me all the time. She controls me. I'm going, whoa, you weren't there at the time? You didn't participate? You had no choice? No, there are people who attempt to control me, but I don't need to feel controlled, nor do I have to do anything they're controlling me to do. You don't either. So you do not have to do everything her way. She's accustomed to you doing everything her way. Take a guess why. I'll give you a second. I'll take a drink while you think about it. She's accustomed to your doing everything her way because you always have. Because you're afraid of her. You're afraid of her disapproval like death. Now, if it's easy to accommodate her and you don't mind at all, then fine. If it's easy for you to call your grandson on the day of his birthday, well, then just go ahead. But if you have to give up who you are, if you have to feel control, if you have to feel small as a result of interacting with her, then don't do it. But don't do it your way, the way you're doing it now, which is with an attitude. Well, she's trying to control me. Well, so what? You can't control. You're trying to control her so that she doesn't control you, which is worse. You're both controlling. No attitude, or you'll cause conflict. You continue. Very recently, she's been inviting me to, in your words, talking about my words, a perfectly good fight. And you add in parentheses, I always get a chuckle out of that line. In any event, I have made the decision to discontinue behaving out of obligation. Oh, how cool. I have learned that if I cannot give something freely and with love, it's not a gift and everyone loses. Well, honey, you have been listening. Right. Hooray for you. You continue. I've sent my grandson a gift that will arrive before his birthday, but it's not convenient and I feel obligated, so I'm not going to be calling on his birthday. If I recall, he's like 5, and a 5-year-old is going to go, oh, well, Grandma, geez, just a minute. Let me get out my bad book. Santa's not going to come and visit you this year because, well, you called me on the wrong day. So naughty, nice, yeah, naughty, you lose. A 5-year-old cares about a date? They don't know what a date is. So you've decided not to do that. So a hint from me to you. I've lived with these expectations all my life. So's pretty much everybody. I call the members of my family, and almost never on their birthday. Like, maybe never. I usually call a week before. Why? I don't know. Feel like it? Maybe there's a little bit of a rebel in me. I don't know. I don't feel like snotty about it. I'm just going, it just occurred to me, Dad's birthday is going to be in a week. The instant it occurs to me, even if it's a month beforehand, then I call Dad and I say, happy birthday. And he says, my birthday's not for 2 weeks. And I go, I know. So I guess I'd be the first then to congratulate you for your birthday. I don't do it to be first. I do it because it just crossed my mind. And turns out he loves that. Turns out almost everybody loves it as long as they can feel your tone of voice, that you're celebrating their birth. When I say to my father, I am so glad that you're in my life. I'm so glad to be your son. You think he's going to complain at me that I called on the wrong day? But see, when you call your daughter or your grandson, you don't have that feeling because you're already feeling afraid of the expectations and the obligations. And if you just call them on their birthday, you're just one of many calls made out of obligation, and it just kind of disappears, doesn't it, into the background noise of duty. So I call early. Your daughter might not like it. Daughter might say, well, that doesn't count. Well, tough. You're giving the gift of your time and your love. It's your gift to offer. You get to give it when and how you wish. Imagine giving somebody a Christmas present and having them look at it and go, that's not the right color. Now, there are people that rude, but you're joking. That's what you're doing with your grandson. You're giving him a gift of your time and love. He is going to enjoy it even if your daughter doesn't. And your daughter doesn't get pleased by anything anyway, so why give up who you are to do things her way? You continue. Further, this would require me to talk to my daughter, whom I have no intention of joining on the field of death as she makes her demands. My suspicion is that my grandson's feelings will be hurt when his mother tells him something like, quote, everyone who loves you called you today for your birthday, and then waits for him to realize that I had not called that day. Since I know your daughter, I actually believe you that she would do this. You continue, she did this exact thing a few years ago when I failed to call my granddaughter on the exact day of her birthday, so apparently she has done this. Regardless of the card and gift that I had sent early, not late, my granddaughter actually believed that I didn't love her for a while. And my daughter sent me an attacking email saying, "You've really hurt my baby this time. This takes the cake, even for you." But notice what you said. Your granddaughter believed that you didn't love her for a while. They're not entirely stupid. And so here's this little child who's watching her mother be snotty and demanding and vengeful and venomous. And every time you see her, you're obviously delighted to see her, while her mother is not. She can tell the difference. So if you give up your life to avoid your daughter's disapproval and passing it on to your granddaughter, what a waste. Because your granddaughter's going to figure it out anyway. You can't change your daughter. She's been like this for years, but your grandchildren will slowly figure out that you did call them, just not on the day, and they won't care. You can even say, "This is the special day that I celebrate your birthday." And then tell them a story about how 5 days before they were born, you tailor the story to yourself, that you had some personal celebration. You've got a story to tell like this, you just don't realize it. 5 days before they were born, you had a personal celebration about how they were going to come into the world. So you chose 5 days before their birthday to celebrate their birth. I'm just giving you an example. You make up your own. It used to be true. For years and years, I worked as a surgeon and I worked in emergency rooms. And turns out they pay double to work on Christmas and New Year. So, kidding. I was poorer than dirt. And so every Christmas and New Year and every holiday that I could, I worked in the emergency room. And so we routinely celebrated Christmas, I don't know, a week early, 5 days early, something, so that I could work on Christmas. And I would just tell them, "Hey, we're going to have Christmas tomorrow because, I've got to work on Christmas." And I called Santa and he said, "Oh, no problem. I'll come down early." Ask a kid if he minds if Christmas arrives early. And then they find out that their dad has this, special, I've got Santa's personal number relationship with him. And so, it's kind of a win-win, They never cared, and they still joke about it. Well, what date are we going to celebrate this thing on? Well, I don't know. Just have Dad call Santa and change the date. So don't worry about your daughter. It's about the love in your gift. You say, "I know that I can't control her or how she reacts. At the same time, I can't help but wish there were a way to keep this little boy from having his feelings hurt, or worse yet, believing that his grandmother doesn't love him." Baby, in any given moment, you can't control your daughter or the snotty things she says to him, ever. She's going to say little snotty things whether you do it on the right day or not. But he will get old enough to remember that you called, that he is special to you. You're going to tell him special stories about himself. And eventually he's going to go, "Mom, I don't think that's true." He probably won't say it out loud for fear of being emotionally beaten, because that's what she would do. But he's going to experience your love. And that's all you care about, isn't it? You're not going to make your daughter happy. From every indication that I've got, that's just not going to happen. But your grandkids, yeah, you can do that. New subject. A woman writes and says, "I'm going to a friend's house to spend the weekend together. I love spending time with her son, Josh, who is 4 years old. Last time I visited, Josh seemed distant from me. He didn't say hi when I arrived, and he didn't say goodbye when I left. He looked at me, but he said nothing. But he gave me this kind of suspicious face. I didn't quite know what to do about it. Do Do I say something about that the next time? Honey, he's 4. So no, you don't say anything about last time. He's not even going to remember last time. You just walk in, sit on the floor. Remember that the last time you came in, which is what all adults do, we're standing 8 miles taller than these little kids. We are lumbering giants. We speak in loud voices. We tell them what to do and what not to do. They feel small. Walk in, sit on the floor next to him, and then just wait. Really, just sit there. We always think we have to control a conversation with, well, everybody, and especially kids. I love doing this with my grandkids. Just sit there and then say, now I'm not telling you what to say, but I'm telling you a way because you don't know a way. So here's one. You say, Josh, you wait. You wait, and you know what he'll do? He'll look right in your eye. Guaranteed. Josh, real soft. He looks in your eye and you say, you know what? No child can resist that line. Really, it's a winner. And then he's going to say something like, no, but he's sure dying to know. Or he'll just look at you with his head sort of cocked to the side when you say, you know what? And he's going to look at you like, that means, no, what? Or his eyes will squint. He's 4. And then you say, I love you, Josh. And then you just smile. Don't move and don't expect a reaction. Totally no expectations. Then I get a second email from the same woman. She says, I can't believe it. I did it. It worked like a charm. Kids can feel this. She said, I walked into the house with the attitude of caring about how he feels. That's the attitude. That's called loving, by the way. Caring about how he feels instead of wondering what is wrong, which is partly caring about him, but it's also caring about you because you wondered what you'd done wrong and you felt uncomfortable with the last time that you visited with him. Big difference. Kids can feel when you have expectations. I talked to a lady recently who could not wrap her head around the idea that her mother had not been loving. And so I asked her a bunch of questions, and I discovered that her mother was very attentive. She was always around, buzzing around, offering her things, talking to her. But her mother always had an attitude of fear. Her mother was always afraid. Are you okay? Are you comfortable? Do you want me to get you the gift? Can you hear the tone of my voice? Rapid fire machine gun bullets of need. So her mother was very attentive. You were very attentive to Josh on the occasion when he just looked at you suspiciously, but you were afraid of his reaction. So he didn't feel loved and he stayed quiet. So back to this woman that I was telling you about. Her mother always had an attitude of fear. And so the woman grew up feeling absolutely unloved despite all the attention in the world. See, it's not the attention. It's paying attention to him. You continue. I greeted him warmly, looking right in his eyes. He loved it that I looked into his eyes. Then I did the thing that you suggested a bit later. He asked if I wanted to play. And so I did. I sat down next to him on the floor and I said, you know what? And I waited. And he did just what you said. He looked at me with curiosity, kind of squinting his eyes and cocking his head at the same time, which is 2 of the things I was saying. He didn't say anything, which you don't expect from a 4-year-old. They may say something, they may not, who knows. And then I said, I love you, Josh, and smiled. He was quiet and smiled sweetly and snuggled up to me and put his head on my chest. And then we played. and it was fun. Now, how do you get better than this? Love is charming. Love is disarming. Love is connecting. Love is fun and fulfilling. And you just proved it. Way to go. And you just did what we've talked about many, many times. What can I do to bring more love into this situation? And when we do that, we can't control how things will turn out. But wow, do things tend to work out better. We'll see you in a week.